Today we're going to be going over the question, who is the GOAT of mixed martial arts? We're going to be concluding that answer at the end of this video. I'm going to be going over a few guys that are most commonly known as, part of the GOAT conversation. And by the end of the video, we're going to get our answer. So starting off with John Bones Jones, most commonly known as the GOAT as of right now. You ask anybody, they're going to say John Jones is the GOAT of the MMA if they have a competent brain. But some people may not want to count him in the GOAT conversation at all because of his PEDs, but we'll get to that later on. So he's got 16 title wins. That's the most title wins of any UFC fighter ever. So obviously that's very impressive. That's one of the biggest things you're going to be looking at. This guy has fought in everybody and beaten just about everybody that he's came across. Guys like Daniel Cormier, Stipe Miocic, Thiago Santos, Glover Teixeira, Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans. A ton of guys. He has faced adversity. Honestly, not a few times, but the Gustafsson fight was a close one. Got caught in that armbar versus Vitor Belfort, which brings up my next point is Dominic Reyes. That fight, we got to give it to Dom Reyes. So, yes, he only has one loss on his resume technically, and that was the DQ to Matt Hamill, but it kind of balances out because it's pretty unanimous that Dominic Reyes won that fight. And so I think John Jones truly has one loss, and you can give him the win for Matt Hamill. So you got to give him one loss for the Dominic Reyes fight. So he's technically not undefeated, as Dana White would normally say. He has never lost. Well, he has lost, and it was to Dominic Reyes. And who knows with the sketchy judging there, Dana White could have been behind that as well. But even though he has, we're talking about that Reyes loss, that is only one loss, and it's mixed martial arts, and to have one loss in your whole career is almost impossible at this point. You don't really see anybody doing that, at least not the guys that, get out early enough. Volkanovski could have done it, but, he was just in there a little bit too long. Islam Makhachev could definitely retire with one loss. Khabib retired with no losses. GSP, 2 losses. So, one loss and about 27 wins. Incredible record. You probably won't see something like that for a while unless Islam Makhachev gets there. But next thing you could bring up is him ducking Tom Aspinall and ducking USADA too, hiding under the cage when USADA shows up. Ducking Tom Aspinall, yes, he's not scared of Tom Aspinall, I'm sure. It's the GOAT of mixed martial arts, but at the same time, he's clearly ducking Tom Aspinall, and it's really starting to annoy the fans. He's saying that, he's living his best life. He's saying that he doesn't need to gamble his legacy. He's saying this, he's saying that. And, Tom Aspinall is the clear, probably best guy, the guy that has the best chance to beat John Jones. And all of a sudden, John Jones is out for a year, and we knew this would happen. The fight hasn't been made. It hasn't been booked. Apparently, the Jones side is good, and the Tom Aspinall side is definitely good. So what's the holdup? I don't know. He's asking for more money. He's on vacation. He's doing everything but fighting Tom Aspinall, and it's a really big red flag. And I'm not saying he's scared of Tom, but he's really ducking Tom Aspinall. And to bring up on top of that, just the competition. Yes, he fought killer after killer, but a lot of these guys were a lot smaller than him. Glover Teixeira, Lyoto Machida, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen. These are middleweights. So that's pretty interesting to see there. And then even then, going to a decision with Anthony Smith. Maybe this is just a video criticizing John Jones, but then the last thing we'll bring up is the PED use. He's been popped. This is confirmed. It's not an allocation. This is confirmed he's been using PEDs. So I also find it crazy that, the GOAT of mixed martial arts is a light heavyweight at that, and he still doesn't have like a knockout on the feet with his hands. That's absolutely insane. You think of Alex Pereira, Yuri Prohaska, just light heavyweights there that of course aren't the goat, are getting crazy knockouts. John Jones has, I can't think of one time that he's gotten a knockout with his hands on the feet. He head kicked DC, and that was he was on roids in that fight. But he TKO'd Gustafson. That was on the ground and pound. I don't know, man. So he has the most impressive resume, I would see, but there are a lot of things you could bring up that you would just make you say, hold on a minute. Is this guy truly the GOAT? You'd have to put him in the GOAT conversation, and he would have to be in your top three, depending on whether you count PEDs or not. But even still, you cannot deny how great this guy's career has been. Moving on, George St. Pierre. He's got 13 title wins, crazy win streak, not the most amount of finishes. Probably one of the most. I mean, all of these guys are well rounded, but when you think of well rounded, you think of GSP. This guy can wrestle, he can hold you down, he can submit you, he can knock you out, he can beat you by decision, of course. He's such a safe fighter, some of the best fight IQ. The fight IQ is what really is a commonality between the GOATs. John Jones, Demetrius Johnson, George St. Pierre. I mean, these are the guys that you think of when you think of fight IQ. These guys are the epitome of fight IQ. So, he had those 13 title wins, top 5 all time in title wins. I think even top 3. Only one of 4 guys with double-digit title wins in the UFC. Similar to the Dominic Reyes loss, we got to bring up GSP's controversial win versus Johnny Hendricks. Again, I scored it for Hendricks, so I got to count that as a loss for GSP. It's tough, he didn't technically lose, but I had it for Hendricks 3-2. And then you bring in that Matt Serra loss, which, yes, he avenged. And I guess I'll talk about that now. He did avenge both his losses to Matt Serra. I think he had pretty much an instant rematch versus Matt Serra, and he absolutely freaking pillaged Matt Serra. So, it's good to see. He also avenged his Matt Hughes loss, who, he lost to early on in his career, and Matt Hughes was an absolute animal at that time. That's really not a bad loss. And so him avenging that loss is very impressive. But losing to Matt Serra, I mean, yes, it was a huge upset and kind of fluky. Matt Serra did clip him behind the head, so it's tough. But, Matt Serra, what is he, like 12-7 in his MMA career? That's the only success he's had. It's just kind of so clearly a one and done, an upset story that, will not happen again for some time. Knocking out the champion like that as such a big underdog as Sarah was, that's really not going to happen again. So, and at the same time, GSP did avenge that loss. So, he did avenge both losses, throwing that Johnny Hendricks loss that he got the win for on top of those 13 title wins. It's a little bit wishy-washy, but he's definitely someone that you would bring up in the GOAT conversation. And the last guy we're going to be talking about is Mighty Mouse, Demetrius Johnson. 14 title wins. Just the longest reign, I think, of any champion in the UFC. Held the belt for what felt like 10 years. And even went to leave the UFC and become champion in ONE FC. So that's really impressive. Winning the belt in another promotion, especially after leaving the UFC, and did all that he did in the UFC. He goes and wins the ONE FC belt as well. Now, just like the other fighters, you got to bring up one fight in particular. And for Demetrius Johnson, that's the Henry Cejudo fight. He did end up losing a split decision in their second fight, which was ultimately his last fight in the UFC. And while a lot of people do think that Demetrius Johnson did win that fight, it was controversial either way. I thought Henry Cejudo actually won that fight. It was a very, very close competitive fight. And you could, I'm not going to argue with you if you gave it to Demetrius Johnson, but I had him losing to Henry Cejudo. So I thought that was a good scorecard, a good outcome, but I know a ton of people think Mighty Mouse won that fight, and he could have kept his reign going, but Henry Cejudo did end up beating Mighty Mouse via split decision. And the last thing I got to bring up is the resume quality. We see this happening more and more nowadays, where guys in the modern era, such as Makhachev and Topuria, are kind of gaining quick ground in the GOAT conversation on guys such as Anderson Silva, Demetrius Johnson, just because of the fighters they fought and the difference in quality. I mean, you have Ilya Topuria beating Volkanovski and Max Holloway and Josh Emmett. And you got Demetrius Johnson beating Ray Borg and John Moraga. Benavidez, one of his better wins. Tim Elliott coming out straight off of the Ultimate Fighter. It's just tough to. Yes, he has the numbers, and you can only fight who Dana White gives you. But and Mighty Mouse was certainly dominant versus these guys, but you know, it's not. We can't fill in guys that Mighty Mouse didn't fight and say he would have won that fight. He would have beaten Prime Pantoja. He would have beaten Prime Moreno. We really just don't know. So you can only fight who's put in front of you, but Tim Elliott literally got a title shot after winning the Ultimate Fighter. I mean, how would that ever happen nowadays? You got to win. Look at Merab, Leon, Bilal Muhammad. These guys have to be unbeaten for 10 plus fights to get a title shot. And you have Tim Elliott coming in off the Ultimate Fighter and get a title shot. A lot of these guys are just not well-known names. Ray Borg, Ali Bagautinov. A lot of the fans nowadays won't even know who these guys are, so the resume quality could be a lot better for Demetrius Johnson. It just has to do with the times back then. Similar to Anderson Silva, he's not fighting killers like Hamzat Chimaev, like Drix Du Plessis, even Sean Strickland, Kyle Morales. He's not fighting these guys. It's just tough to compare the resumes when there's such a difference in quality, but that's just how it goes. Sports evolve every year. Guys get better every year, and they're going to continue to get better. And that's why a lot of these guys are really climbing the ranks in the GOAT conversation, and a lot of the modern guys are even becoming GOATs of their own division. And that's a video I'm going to make very, very soon, so stay tuned for that video. But that's the third fighter and final fighter that we were going over today. So we got Demetrius Johnson, we got George St. Pierre, and we got Johnny Bones Jones. Now, maybe this is the obvious choice, but you have to go John Jones as the GOAT, at least currently. In a few years or even a year, guys, this could change. We're in crazy times where, like I just said, a lot of guys can contend for GOAT status. Islam is only a few wins away. With the quality that Ilya Topuria has, he beats Islam Makhachev, and he said he wants to move up to welterweight. If he does that, that'll be interesting. Alex Pereira was getting close before that Ankalaev loss. If he had gone up and beaten Tom Aspinall, he definitely has an argument for the GOAT of mixed martial arts. But as of right now, today, you got to put John Jones in there as the GOAT. He's been the GOAT for a while now, and to be honest, when you're just having a conversation with someone and you ask, who's the GOAT of UFC, you say John Jones, you're used to just saying, oh, John Jones right off the bat. But, times are changing, man. And in a year, we might not be saying John Jones. We might be saying Islam Makhachev. So even Alexander Volkanovski, if he keeps it going. But that'll do it for today's video. John Jones is the GOAT of mixed martial arts, at least right now. In the future, that could change, but right now, John Jones is the GOAT of mixed martial arts. I would probably say Georges St. Pierre is number 2 all time, but after that, it does get a little bit interesting. You notice that I didn't even put Anderson Silva out of these 4 guys, so just goes to show, times are evolving. Anderson Silva is not even a top 5 fighter anymore. and Mighty Mouse is falling out of there as well with just the talent that the modern fighter era has. These guys are going to be falling out of the top five quickly, and we've already seen a few guys do it, but Jones at 1 and GSP at 2, I think is safe to say, for me at least right now. That'll do it for today's video. If you liked the video, please drop a like, comment, subscribe, share the video, all that, and that'll be it for me.